Hey, what's up, Fervent Church? Happy Valentine's Day. I'm excited that you joined us today. Today, we're going to keep it real romantic. We're going to have a very romantic message today on behalf of Valentine's Day. I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. We're diving deeper into this series called This is the Way. So right off the top, all my people in the chats, let's repeat it after me. Say, this is the way. You don't have to type it all out. Say, TITW, this is the way. We're trying to figure out what does it mean to live the life that God has called all of us, everybody, to live, right? We want to know what is the real way and to give God a clean slate, not the way that we've learned and observed in the modern day church in the last couple decades, but what is the way that Jesus taught us how to live. And we've been studying something called the fruits of the Spirit. And in light of the fruits of the Spirit, we've been talking about love and we're talking about peace and patience and a bunch of good stuff. So today, I titled today's message, This is Kindness. This is kindness. Galatians chapter 5, we've been reading this almost every single week, but I need to get it deep into your hearts. It says this, it says, but the fruit of the Spirit, and again, let me stop right there. What is the fruit of the Spirit? The fruit of the Spirit is the byproduct of being in God's presence. So if you're really in God's presence, it doesn't matter how mature you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been in church. Listen, you could live in a garage and it doesn't make you a car, right? It doesn't matter how much you've grown up and you've been to Awana and Vacation Bible School and you've gone to mission trips and you've done all that and then some. It doesn't matter if we're not in the presence of God, because you could go to those programs, but the programs are way different than His presence. I'm preaching right off the top, so you better shout me down in the chat, all right? Those programs cannot replace His presence, all right? So that's what we're talking about. So it really doesn't matter. I don't think you could bear any fruit, any of these fruits, devoid of His presence. So we talked about the fruit of the Spirit, the byproduct of being in the presence of God. These are the things that we see. We see it's the Spirit. The Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. In fact, today we're going to combine kindness and gentleness, self-control. Against such things, there is no law. I love other translations or other paraphrases of this. If you read the Message version, it says that the law cannot provide this. It can't produce this kind of stuff, okay? In other words, like, you cannot produce this in human effort. Your human effort cannot produce this. Someone asked us onto the floor, which is our Instagram Live, every Sunday, except Super Bowl Sunday, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Someone asked us, can you produce this type of these things without the Holy Spirit? And I hesitated because I know it sounds really harsh, but it's the truth. You can't. I will sit there and say you can't. It's not real love. It's not real peace. It's not real joy. It's not real kindness devoid of God's presence. I know that sounds harsh, but listen, at best, all we do is manufacture fake fruit. I want to talk to all you who invite your pastor over and you go to Home Goods and you buy, just for decoration purposes, you buy that fake fruit. You know what I'm talking about? The fake pears, the fake apples. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to tell you that there wasn't a moment where I went to someone's house and it was the middle of the day and I was really hungry. And they said, go into the kitchen, have anything you want. And no lie, I picked up a pear. Because, man, I haven't had a pear in a really long time. I picked up a pear, thought it was real. It looked really, really real. So thank you, Home Goods, for being so deceitful. But it looked really real, and I bit it, and I bit into that styrofoam plastic pear, all right? And so if that's you, I forgive you in Jesus' name. No bitterness here. I'm bearing the fruits of the Spirit. But there's a difference between real fruit and fake fruit. You can manufacture it, and you might think that, hey, listen, it looks good from the outside, but it doesn't taste good, all right? The real stuff tastes a heck of a lot better than the styrofoam manufactured stuff, okay? So we want to bear the fruits of the Spirit when it comes to these things of God. And so today we're talking about kindness and gentleness. And I want to combine the two because if you get your nerd on, and you go to the Greek, if it's your first time watching, when we read our Bible's written in primarily three languages. You got Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And and most of the New Testament is written in Greek. And so when we look at the Greek word for kindness and gentleness, they kind of mean the same thing. Christostis is the word that we're going to look at today, is the Greek word. And I love the definition. It's crazy. The definition is so enlightening because the word gentleness or kindness actually means this. You ready? It means excellence and uprightness. Woo! I love it when people are like, is excellence really a value of the kingdom of God? And I'm here to tell you, absolutely. Absolutely. It means excellence and uprightness. I love that part of the definition. It actually means it's this usable gentleness. Kindness is actually usable gentleness. It's not enough that you're a gentle person. Are you using it to serve other people? And if you kind of connect that to actually, if you go deeper into the Greek definition, it actually means meeting, watch this, and this is straight from a Bible dictionary. It's meeting real needs the way God intended it. Woohoo! Meeting real needs the way God intended it. We're meeting real needs. That's what true kindness is, meeting real needs. Kindness also means it's avoiding human harshness. Avoiding human harshness. That sounds really pretty, but let me tell you what that really means. That means that if I'm bearing the fruit of the Spirit, that I cannot be a jerk. There should be no such thing as a person that is anchored in the presence of God and is a jerk at the same time. Come on. I'm preaching to myself. I'm not preaching condemnation to you. I'm challenging myself because there are times where I wouldn't declare myself a jerk, but there are times where I have my jerky moments. You know what I'm saying? Right? I tend to sometimes retaliate that way, and that is not a fruit of the Spirit. And this is a mark of God. God is marked by kindness. Let me say that again because some of you need to hear this. If you've never been to church before, if you've never encountered a church that really, really, really amplifies the characteristics of who God is a kind God. I'm sorry if you've never experienced it that way, but it's true. From our Old Testament, which is the Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament, which is our Christian Bible, like God has always been kind. If you read in Jeremiah 9:24, he says it this way. This is God talking on his behalf. He goes, I am the Lord, watch this, who exercises kindness. I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. God's like, you know what makes me happy? When you enjoy my kindness. Yes, it is tensioned with my justice and righteousness, but I am a kind God, all right? Sometimes we like to paint the picture of God in the Old Testament as this angry God, but he was always a gracious God. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never, ever changed, okay? And so when we looked at, even in the New Testament, he was a kind God. In the Old Testament, he was a kind God. In the New Testament, we see that he's this overflowing with love type of God. And the famous verse that we always tend to use during weddings, I said this last week, shout out to all my people that are still braving the storm and getting married this year in 2021. But you might want to use this verse, but in a different way. 1 Corinthians 13, the Apostle Paul, this man who was radically changed from a murderer to a church planner in the New Testament. He writes this letter to the church of Corinth, and he didn't write this chapter so that we could quote it during weddings. He wrote it because he was describing God, because God is love. And he says, love, and watch this, in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-5, he says this, love is patient, which we talked about last week, and love is kind. And if God is love, God is kind. And so I want to drive home this element of kindness and gentleness. Now, if I'm honest with you, unfortunately, in my life, those aren't characteristics that people would mark me with. They're not. They're characteristics that I had to learn in God's presence. They're characteristics that I've acquired through God tenderizing my heart. And that's what he'll do. If you are brave enough to be vulnerable with God, to be intimate with God, and you get into his presence, he will tenderize your heart to make even the toughest dude go to their knees and ask for forgiveness of their callous heart, and he will trade you your callous heart for a heart of kindness. And so I didn't really know, if I'm honest, let's be vulnerable real quick. I didn't know where to go with this sermon because this is kind of like, you would think preacher, all preachers, when they look at, oh, I'm preaching on kindness, what a layup. How easy it is just to preach on kindness. But when I dove deep into the definition of it, when I dove deep into my life in regards to this concept, this element of kindness and gentleness, it got really deep. It got really deep because most of you know this, that Fervent Church is a very diverse church. We have many people from many different backgrounds and many different methods and ideologies, and I love it. It's been our prayer for years for us, God, to continue to keep us a diverse church. But in the last 12 months, that blessing of diversity has honestly become a burden of diversity. Why? It's because I felt like I've had to be peacemaker with the difference between Republicans and Democrats, or pro-mask people and anti-mask people. And I love every single one of you equally, And so with the last 12 months with the racial divide and politics and everything like that, it's been kind of hectic and crazy. I still love you, but it has been hectic and crazy. And so with this topic of kindness, I decided when I sat down, I was like, okay, I want to speak to the people in our audience. And there are many different types of people in our audience. So I was like, what would it look like if I wrote letters to these individuals in regards to kindness in our modern day context? And so I started off with this first letter because this one's safe. This one applies to all of us, including myself. And I started off with saying, Dear Christians, those who claim to be followers and lovers of Jesus. And listen, if you're not a Christian today, trust me, just enjoy the ride. I believe that you could still walk away learning something. And I thank you for giving us an opportunity to have this discussion with you. But in this first letter, I got 2 more letters after this, but in this first letter, I want to talk to Christians. So I said this, Dear Christians, do people who have yet to encounter the love of Jesus mark you with kindness? Do people who have yet to encounter the love of Jesus, do they mark you with kindness? Now, notice I didn't say people who don't believe in God, because mostly in our nation, in America, everyone's heard of God, right? We say Pledge Allegiance and we sing our patriotic songs, and they all incorporate God. It's very rare that you'll find someone who doesn't know about Jesus or God. I'm talking about those who have yet to encounter the love of Jesus, because those two things are completely different. So, dear Christians, those who have not encountered the love of Jesus, would they mark you by your kindness? Would they say that you're a kind person? And remember what kind means. It means to avoid human harshness. Ask yourself that question right now. Would they really mark you that way? Or, would they mark us collectively, like collectively as a church with a capital C? If you ask people their opinions on Christians, unfortunately, they say things like hypocrites. They say things like restrict or super conservative or rejecting or critical or judgmental. What would it look like if we were just marked with our kindness? Man, I don't agree with those people, but they are the kindest people that I have ever encountered. What would it look like if we were marked with kindness? Dear Christians, do people who have encountered the love of Jesus mark us with kindness? So now I'm not even talking about people outside of our community. I'm talking about people within our community. Would people within our community mark us with kindness? I'm going to be straight up with you. There have been seasons in my life where I looked around in the church and I asked the question, is anyone kind? Because y'all making me not a kind person. So I can't imagine how you are behind the scenes when I encounter you on a Sunday-to-Sunday basis, right? Do people who have encountered the love of God, will they mark you with kindness? Unfortunately, again, being in the church, and this letter's to me too, folks, so I'm not preaching condemnation. I'm being kind to all of us right now by challenging us with this word, by saying that aren't there times, Christians, where we are marked by not kindness, but we're marked by kicking people while they're down? We are. We're marked by kicking people while they're down. In the last 12 months, I've seen many of our soldiers and pastors and ministers fall morally due to isolation, due to the life just switching things up because of a pandemic. And I've watched people fail morally, and the church kick them while they're down. And I've watched people speak negatively in regards to their posting on social media or the way the news painted them out to be. And And regardless if you agree with them or not, I don't think that's the point. My point is that if we're going to live the way, because this is the way, if we're going to live the way, do we really ever see Jesus kicking people while they're down? I personally can't find it. And I think somewhere down the line, what we've done is that we learn to condition people through shame. We believe that shame will make people change, and shame will not make people change. I grew up and found myself in a Spanish Pentecostal church, and in that church, a teenage girl, she got pregnant, and they put her on this thing called disciplina. And if you're Spanish watching right now, you know what I'm talking about. Disciplina. And basically, they put her on discipline. They punished her for having a baby out of wedlock, is what they described to her. And this was her punishment. And I'm not exaggerating. This is the God-honest truth. They told her for the next several months, until you have the baby, you have to sit in the back row of the church. You have to come to church service every single Sunday, sit in the back row, and no one is allowed to talk to you. That's how they treated this girl. In the time when she needed more support than she's ever needed in her life, the time that she needed to feel real love is the time that the church said, here's how we're going to change you. We're going to change you through shame, and we're going to isolate you, put you out of community so that you learn your lesson. And I struggle with that theologically because I fully believe that change doesn't come through shame. I actually believe that change comes through community. And so when us Christians, when we kick people when they're down, and we isolate them and we push them out and we go, shame on you, you need to learn your lesson, and we push them out of our circles, we push them out, and we leave them there to figure things out, I don't believe that shame is going to be the tool to actually produce any kind of change in that person's life. I don't see Jesus doing that at all. In fact, isn't it amazing how Jesus didn't have one-on-one with his 12 disciples? He brought them together in community. Isn't that interesting? He brought them together in community. Why? Because change happens in community. And not just community, but a kind community. A kind community that's kind to one another, because again, it's biblical. You might have heard this verse before in Galatians 6, 9 to 11. It says this, and let us not grow weary of doing good, right? This is the verse that we kind of hype ourselves up. We get the tattoo, right? We get the shirt. We go to the gym. Let us not grow weary in doing good. Pumping up these biceps are doing good. Leg day is always good, right? So for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. But the verse after that says something a little more enlightening in our context today. It says this, so then, as we have opportunity, which we all have opportunity, says this, let us do good to everyone. Let us do good to everyone, especially those who are in the household of faith, okay? So right there, how are we supposed to kick people while they're down? Because we all know we're not perfect. Some people just hide their sin better than others, right? But we're taught we got to shame them to change. So let's kick them while they're down rather than extending kindness. So dear Christians, how are we extending kindness to people inside our community and outside of our community? How are we doing that? Because you've heard this phrase before, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I would say this, that, man, they're not going to change until you first offer them kindness. We want to smack them in the face with the truth. But have you extended kindness to the people around us? Because listen, as your pastor, just remember that even though I don't post a lot on social media, in the times where I get bored, or let's call it what it is. Let's be vulnerable. When we're scrolling on the toilet, come on, raise your hand if that's you. We're going to be real. We're going to keep it 100 today. When you're scrolling on the toilet, trust me, your pastor sees the stuff you post. And I want to challenge you as your pastor. On social media, are you bearing the fruit of kindness? Well, pastor, we live in America and I have the freedom of speech and I can say anything and everything I want to say. You're absolutely right. You do. You have the freedom of speech in America. But in the kingdom, we have the freedom of kindness. And so I challenge you that before you post anything and you're expressing your opinion, and to be honest with you, nobody cares about your opinion. All right? I know that doesn't sound kind, and I'm sounding real hypocritical, but it's true. No one really does care about your opinion. All you're going to do is get other people who agree with your opinion to comment on your posts or start an unnecessary fight when our world needs unity and kindness more than anything. But ask yourself the question, before you click post, is this kind? Is this bearing the fruit of kindness? Even, folks, even if you're right, even if, we love to challenge people with our posts and our memes and that kind of stuff. And I like to quote our executive pastor, Steve Remickis, a few months ago, or actually now a year ago. He preached a sermon, and he said two brilliant quotes that I want to quote my man Steve with. And he says, you can be right and not be condescending, which I totally agree with him. He said, you could be right and not be condescending. And then my favorite quote of that sermon was this. He said, people feel judged when the correction isn't proportionate to the relationship. When the correction isn't proportionate to the relationship. So you can sit there and be like, I'm just spitting truth. But if it's not truth laced with kindness, and more importantly, if you don't have a relationship with these individuals, is the relationship proportionate to the challenge that you're giving these people? And so get off your social media soapbox and ask yourself the question, Christian, dear Christians, am I being marked by the fruit of kindness? Because we can sit there and preach about all the lines that we want. And that's what religion does. Religion likes to talk about the lines. You crossed the line here, and you've crossed the line there, and this is wrong, and that is wrong. Religion will always ask, where's the line? But I believe wholeheartedly that my Jesus will always ask, where's the hurt? And if you could be kind in the arenas where people are hurting, this world would be so much better, folks. But we want to preach about the line. That's not helping. It's not advancing the kingdom. Jesus didn't ask, where's the line? He asked, where is the hurt? And he served people in that area. So let's serve people with our kindness. So, dear Christian, are you being clothed with kindness? Paul wrote another book in Colossians, the book of Colossians, and if you can read in Colossians 3:12, he says this, he goes, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, which you are, he says, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Ain't that crazy? Like he's saying, clothe yourself with some of these fruits, with patience and gentleness and kindness. Clothe yourself. Not he's saying not fruit of the looms. Come on. Clothe yourself with the fruit of the Spirit. And to wear this. So it's not even just internally. Sometimes we love to talk about the internal stuff. God works from the inside out, but he eventually gets out, and we have to clothe ourselves. I think real mature Christians clothe themselves with kindness. People can see it. It's tangible. It's tangible. People should be eating off the fruit of your kindness if we're really bearing the fruit of the presence of God in our lives. Y'all getting this? Because ultimately, folks, if we really want to change the world, we got to do it God's way. We got to do it the Jesus way. And what is the Jesus way? How to change people? We say the word repentance a lot. You ever heard us? Repent. And we say this in a very dark, negative thing. But basically, repentance means a change for the good. It's a good change. It's a change for the better. You might have heard it said that you're sorrowful and you're regretful for what you've done, and you do a 180. It's a complete turn. But I think, let me motivate you and inspire you with a different light on repentance. I'm not redefining it, but a different light on it. It's like it's a change for the good. It's a change for the better. That's what repentance is. And so God prescribes a way to actually get us to repentance. And this is what he says in Romans 2:3-4. He goes, do you oppose, O man, you who judge, and he's talking to Christians here, you who judge those who practice such things and yet do them themselves. Ain't it crazy, too, that most of us, we act like our junk doesn't stink and we're posting against other people that are doing wrong things, but we have some of those wrong things residing in our lives, but we're just good at covering it up. And he goes, that you will escape the judge of God. And he says this, or do you presume, and he's offering an alternative here, and he goes, here's a better way. Let's presume on the riches of his kindness. The riches of his kindness, okay? I love that. Write that right now in the chat. The riches of his kindness. My man is overflowing with kindness, Okay? Whatever, he's like the billionaire in regards to kindness. He's overflowing with it, the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience, not knowing that God's kindness, watch what it says, that God's kindness is meant to lead you to repentance. It's his kindness that leads us to repentance. All right? So if we're bearing the fruit of kindness, and when they were sharing that fruit of kindness, that is the best way to lead people to that good change, that change for the better. That's the way God wants to do it, so that's the way we should do it. So dear Christians, are you marked with kindness? 2 other letters, you ready? The second one, dear politics. Dear politics, are you marked with the fruit of kindness? I'm not saying that you shouldn't get into politics. I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about politics. I think that the more we create safe environments in our church community, that we should be able to talk about it and not demonize the other side. So dear politics, are you marked with the fruit of kindness? Because here's the deal. Dear politics, let me remind you that we are still called to love our enemies. And let me just stop that right there. Republicans, Democrats aren't your enemies. I know they feel that way, but they're not. Democrats, Republicans aren't their enemy. I know they feel that way, but they're not. I know that anti-maskers, people that are pro-mask, they're not your enemy, and vice versa. Like, we like to demonize and villainize the other side of whatever aisle you stand on. But when Jesus, even when I say love your enemies, they're not even your real enemies. If you look at the context of what Jesus said in Matthew 5 in regards to loving your enemies, the word enemy there means those who hate you and wish injury to you. And I know you might feel that way, the way media creates and highlights the polarized sense that we have in our country. I hate to say this, but it's true. Like, not all Democrats want injury to happen to Republicans, and not all Republicans want injury to happen to Democrats. Again, we have a beautiful, diverse community here, and there's people from looking at the same thing with different angles, okay? So I would actually say this, they're not your enemies. We're all sitting at the same table. Let me remind you that we're all sitting at the same table. And if we listen with kindness, if we speak with kindness, we'll be able to learn and be able to get to the answer or the remedy that our country desperately needs faster, rather than demonizing the other side. We're called to be peacemakers, not peacekeepers, okay? We're called to be peacemakers, and God's kindness leads us to good change. Watch this. God's kindness leads us to good change. Man's harshness leads us to say the same. I need to say that again. It rhymes. It's dope. I'm preaching. God's kindness leads us to good change. Man's harshness leads us to stay the same. So then when you just come in and you attack the other side and you're not bearing the fruit of kindness, all that does is make that person anchor down and just stick even harder to their side. If we're called to meet each other in the middle and to still sit at the same table, folks, bashing the other side is not going to work, okay? Again, I'm challenging us because I want us to all, including myself, walk the Jesus way. It's the Jesus way. He did not live in this polarized sense that we're all living in our modern day society. He didn't. He expressed kindness almost every single time. Every single time. And so, dear politics, are you bearing the fruit of kindness? Last one, and I know I could go through a lot of letters here this morning, but I think this one really, really hits home for me and our church. Dear victim. Dear victim. Dear the person who has encountered a very traumatic event in your life. Dear person who has been abused. Dear person who has been hurt. Dear person who has been betrayed. And if I'm honest with you, I'm talking to myself. I experienced all of those things and more. We could go through a list. We could compare a list of the crazy stuff that has happened in all of our lives. But let me tell you something. Dear victim, I asked you the same question that I asked the person who's all about politics and the Christian. Are you bearing the fruit of kindness? Are you bearing the fruit of kindness? And dear victim, let me tell you this, And again, I'm telling myself, I don't feel any condemnation here because I'm talking to myself. Let me remind us that kindness is not conditional. We can't just be kind to one group of people and not kind to the other group of people. Or we can't just be kind to ourselves and no one else. Kindness, in fact, none of the rest of the fruits of the Spirit. If you look at it, love, patience, all that other stuff, like if it's rooted in God, right? When we say it's the fruit of the Spirit with a capital S, the Spirit of God, and God doesn't change, and God is an unconditional God, that he expresses his love unconditionally, right? If that is the truth, then the fruit needs to be unconditional. So I can't pick and choose which fruits I have and which fruit I don't have. I either have all of them, if I'm bearing all of them, or I'm bearing none of them. Okay? It's because I don't have the choice. I can't be selective that way. It is unconditional. Kindness is unconditional. Okay? So I don't have the choice to not bear the fruit of kindness if I'm in the presence of God. So, dear victim, and again, let me affirm this again. Like, it's hard. I agree with you. I mourn with you. But here's the truth and realization that we all need to come to today. To be like Jesus, I cannot justify my lack of kindness because of my pain. To be like Jesus, I cannot justify my lack of kindness because of my pain. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way Jesus did it. It's not. Isn't it a beautiful image that while he was hanging on the cross, after he was spit on and beaten, while he was hanging on the cross, you know what Jesus said? He said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Even in the point of excruciating, deadly pain, he still extended kindness. So to be like him, to be like Jesus, the lover of your soul, which that is the term that Christian actually means, to be like Jesus, in his likeness. To be like him, I cannot justify my lack of kindness because of my pain. I can't do it. And so I know you've been hurt. I've been hurt. And what we do is that when we've been hurt, we develop some things along the way as coping mechanisms, right? We have the shield. Some of us, if we've been hurt, we have the shield. And honestly, I've used all these tools. At one season of my life, I had the shield. I'm just going to guard myself and protect myself from every person that comes my way. So you have the shield, and then eventually, for me in my life, that shield turned into the chip on my shoulder. In other words, I'm going to hurt you before you could ever hurt me. You have that chip on your shoulder. Or if you've been a victim, what you do is you have the magnifying glass, right? You're constantly walking around suspicious, wondering who's the next person who's going to hurt you. And all of those things, the shield, the chip on your shoulder, and the magnifying glass, blocks us from being kind to people. It blocks us from being kind to people. And we've chalked it up, and I know I have. I've chalked it up, well, that's just my personality. I'm just an aggressive person. And I found out the hard way that there's a difference between the way God wired me and the way life programmed me. Some of you, we've just been programmed by life to be a certain way. And then we consider that programming, that's our real personality. But that is not the way God wired you. As children of God, he's wired us to be loving, to be patient, to be kind, to be gentle. And none of those things are weak, folks, because he also wired us to be strong. We are powerful beings. He put us in charge of all of this called creation. So we're powerful beings. At the same time, we're still gentle, loving, gracious, peaceful, self-controlled. All right? That's the way he wired us. But because of pain, we've been programmed certain ways. So if you were just like me with the shield, with the chip on your shoulder, with the magnifying glass, completely suspicious about everyone that comes in your path, it's hard for you to hold on to those tools while extending kindness to people who God has placed in your life. And here's the crazy part, and I'm just being honest, that what we do is those monsters that hurt you, that abused you, that betrayed you, that neglected you, that has labeled you, those monsters, if we don't extend kindness to other individuals in our lives, guess what, folks? you become a part of the monster factory, and you just create more monsters that'll hurt other people and victimize other people in our lifetime. Is that what you really want? Or, hey, victims, all of us, let's say as of right now, we're going to stop the cycle. And instead of combating and retaliating with a shield, a chip on our shoulder, or a magnifying glass, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the cycle by being in God's presence and bearing the fruit of kindness. That's how we stop the cycle. That's how we break the chains of bondage that's over everyone. That's how we really bring racial unity. That's how we separate the chasm between politics right now. That's how we bring people back into the church community, not the church buildings, back into the church community. Why? Because it's his kindness that leads us to good change. This is the way.